and I was so mad. You violated me and my family. Uh, Me and my friends was going around the corner to kill him, and he wasn't home. So thank God.
A lot of people still try to paint Ice Cube as just a studio gangster, someone who rapped about the streets without ever really living in them. But by his own admission, that narrative is incomplete. Cube has openly spoken about how close he came to a completely different future. In one story, he recalled a local man deep into drugs who showed up at Cube's home, lying to his mother just to squeeze $20 out of her.
Was heavy on drugs, went around to my house and gave my mother some cockamamie story, so she gave him $20.
That moment reportedly pushed Cube over the edge. According to Cube, he and a friend grabbed guns and drove to the man's house, fully prepared to end it right there. The only thing that stopped it was timing. The man wasn't home. Looking back, Cube admitted that absence likely saved multiple lives, including his own, because if that door had opened, the world would have never known the Ice Cube we know today. What separated Cube from many of his peers was structure. Unlike a lot of kids around him, he had a strong father figure who pushed him toward discipline and opportunity. Music became his exit ramp, but leaving the streets didn't mean leaving the mindset behind. And that's exactly why intimidation never worked on him. When Suge Knight began building his reputation as hip-hop's most feared power broker, most people folded.
We were young and we was mad and we had a weapon and it was gonna happen. So it would have been stupid and I wouldn't be sitting here if it did.
But according to DJ Premier, Cube didn't. Premier recalled a moment shortly after Cube left N.W.A, where Cube and Suge squared up, and Cube showed zero hesitation.
You really see Suge and Ice Cube fight?
Also, I see a ruckus, and I just see, Cube's throwing his fists. He wasn't punking out at all.
At a time when Suge was reportedly extorting artists, surrounding himself with real street enforcers, and making examples out of people, Cube stood his ground. That mattered, because Suge wasn't just feared, he was legendary for it. Former manager Jerry Heller once described Suge as pure evil.
They was not scared of Suge Knight. They was terrified of Suge Knight.
Right.
I mean, terrified.
I know.
No. To death.
During the infamous Dr. Dre contract dispute, witnesses like Mob James claimed Heller was frozen in his chair when Suge's crew pulled up demanding Dre's release. Not long after, Heller's home was broken into. Valuables were stolen, and a message spray-painted on his mirror reportedly convinced him that Suge was behind it, even though nothing was ever proven. The paranoia ran so deep that director Albert Hughes later said simply mentioning Suge's name as a joke caused Heller to pull a gun in panic.
Also, I see a ruckus, and I just see, Cube's throwing his fists. He wasn't punking out at all.
If he didn't know he got poked, then the conspiracy lives on.
Would you put it past Suge?
That's the level of fear Suge inspired. But again, Ice Cube wasn't built like everyone else. And that refusal to be intimidated would eventually spill into multiple industry beefs, including inherited tensions with Above the Law after Eazy-E signed them following Cube's exit from N.W.A. Tension really started boiling over in 1990 while Above the Law were promoting their debut album Living Like Hustlers. During an April Los Angeles Times interview, group member KMG the Illustrator threw subtle but pointed shade at Ice Cube, questioning whether Cube's street credibility was actually real. The implication was clear. Cube's hardest lyrics weren't lived, they were borrowed. Cube didn't explode publicly, but he didn't ignore it either. Instead, he fired back with a calculated response, saying that rappers from Pomona should stick to talking about the 10 freeway, a sharp regional jab that everyone understood.
We grew up in a pretty tough neighborhood, but nobody was tougher than my father, so.
Once the interview hit the streets, Eazy-E immediately poured gasoline on the situation. He called Cold 187 and asked one simple question: did you read the paper? Cold 187 did, and reportedly lost it. According to multiple accounts, he said outright that he was going to put hands on Cube. Attempts to calm him down went nowhere. He wasn't interested in talking, and fate didn't make him wait. On April 7, 1990, Above the Law were headlining a show at the Anaheim Celebrity Theater, while Cube happened to be backstage doing a magazine interview in the hallway.
Suge Knight is a mythical figure.
The controversial CEO of Death Row Records.
The most feared figure in all of hip-hop.
His size was intimidating.
Knight had been on probation for a 1992 assault on 2 aspiring rappers.
The two crossed paths, exchanged words, but initially walked away. That didn't last. Later that night, Cube reportedly stepped into Above the Law's dressing room and confronted Cold 187 directly at the doorway. That was all it took. A fight broke out instantly. It wasn't clean, it wasn't quick, and Cube didn't fold. According to witnesses, he held his own until the situation was broken up. But even after fists stopped flying, the tension didn't disappear. By this point, Cube wasn't moving alone anymore.
Me and Cube had some issues. He disrespected Pomona. Me and him got into a head-up scrap. Spilled over to the New Music Seminar. We had an interview with LA Times. What signatures y'all music and everything. So like we talk about what we really was involved with or our college.
After leaving N.W.A, he had built Da Lynch Mob. Not just rappers, but activists and street-connected figures who weren't interested in playing industry games. So when Cube and Above the Law crossed paths again later that year at the Marriott Marquis in Times Square during the 1990 New Music Seminar, it escalated fast. Cube stepped away to speak on a panel, but his crew was still present. Words were exchanged, tempers flared, and before security could fully react, another violent brawl broke out, this time between Da Lynch Mob and Above the Law.
Like Ice Cube that went away to college and come back and act like this big-time gangster in N.W.A, which at the time, that's what he was. You know, he was a dude that was really sharp with the pen, was kind of a schoolboy, you know, never hustled the street, never banged it. LA Times wanted to reply to that. On the interview, he said New Jack and Pomona should only talk about the freeway because that's the only thing that's going through that mother.
It was serious. And by the end of it, Cube's side had made their message clear. After that, Cube seemed unbothered. The point had been made. He wasn't someone you tested. But street confrontations weren't the only battles Cube was willing to fight. Because soon, the conflict shifted. Not to fists, but to ideology. In 1994, a young Common, then known as Common Sense, released I Used to Love Her, a song that would become one of the most celebrated tracks in hip-hop history. On the surface, it was poetic, a metaphor about falling out of love with a woman, who was eventually revealed to represent hip-hop itself.
Eazy-E called me. He said, hey man, did you get the LA Times? I said, no, man, you gotta see it. He laughing on the phone. He's a big joke, so he laughing, ah! So I get it, I read the stuff, eat back and say, I'm your boy up. You know, as soon as I see, oh, cuz, don't be tripping. I said, man, that. Real.
But beneath that metaphor was a sharp critique. The song painted hip-hop's evolution as a fall from purity into violence, commercialization, and gang culture, a direction many associated directly with West Coast artists like Ice Cube. The East Coast loved it, Cube didn't. At its core, I Used to Love Her was a reflection on how hip-hop had changed, but to Ice Cube, it sounded like something else entirely. To Cube, the message felt like a thinly veiled shot at the West Coast dominance during the 1990s, a critique aimed directly at the sound and culture he represented. Things escalated once word spread that Cube had responded. The verse people were referring to wasn't a full diss track, it was Cube's contribution to West Side Slaughterhouse, a track by Mac 10 featuring Cube and WC. Still, that was enough. Members of the Black Unity Collective decided to fire back, and that's when the lyrical war officially began. One of the sharpest responses came from King T, who didn't hold back. His bars accused Cube of ideological flip-flopping, moving from hardcore street rap to Islam-influenced messaging to what he framed as opportunistic posturing for broader acceptance.
So he come, made a meet up in the hallway, said, what's up that said newspaper? You trying to play me like a bust or something on me? Like, oh, you a dude. Like I said, what's happening? You want to get down? So he come back into my dressing room and say, what's up? As soon as he say, what's up? I give him to him a two-piece hot one. Boom, he fall through the door.
The lyrics went deeper, calling Cube a hypocrite, accusing him of promoting street life while publicly aligning himself with the values of the Nation of Islam. And for the final blow, King T flipped Cube's own words against him, using his past lyrics as the closing punchline, a deliberate attempt to undermine Cube using his own legacy. For Ice Cube, this was unfamiliar territory. He wasn't just another rapper in a back and forth. Cube was known as one of the most ruthless diss track artists hip-hop had ever seen. His takedown of N.W.A. on No Vaseline was already legendary. As producer DJ Infinite once put it, "If you come at Cube lyrically, you better come correct, or he'll body you."
So Cube didn't back down either.
No, he didn't. He didn't back down. He got socked out, but he didn't back down. He got socked out, but he didn't back down.
Cube later admitted that he had written a response aimed directly at Common. The diss was ready, but history intervened. The murders of Tupac Shakur in 1996 and the notorious B.I.G. in 1997 sent shockwaves through hip-hop. The genre was bleeding, literally. Less than a month after Biggie's death, on April 3, 1997, Louis Farrakhan organized a historic peace summit at the Nation of Islam's headquarters in Chicago. The goal was simple: stop the cycle before more artists ended up dead. The gathering brought together major figures from across hip-hop, including both Ice Cube and Common. After that meeting, the diss record Cube had written was shelved. The conflict ended without another song being released. But peace didn't erase Cube's history of conflict, because the most infamous feud of his career was still ahead, and it was far more personal.
And when we get to New York, so all the stuff going around the seminars like, oh yeah, the lynch mob here, and they got issues, whatever, right? We see each other going to a panel, right? And then we face off right in the middle of the seminar, and we get down, and all hell broke loose.
His fallout with N.W.A. Most fans already know the surface story. Cube left the group in 1989, claiming he wasn't being paid fairly for the writing he contributed to Straight Outta Compton. What followed was an ugly public split. The beef became so intense that it dragged in people who had nothing to do with contracts or royalties. One of them was D. Barnes, a presenter on the Fox TV show Pump It Up, which regularly covered hip-hop culture and interviewed major artists, including N.W.A. Years later, her name would resurface again in Eminem's song Guilty Conscience, referencing the infamous incident involving Dr. Dre. But before that moment became part of rap history, D. Barnes had already been pulled into the crossfire of a feud that had spiraled completely out of control. Once Ice Cube officially left N.W.A., the tone shifted immediately. The group responded with open hostility, taking shots at Cube on their track 100 Miles and Running.
There's nowhere around. Nowhere around. We tore that whole floor up.
The message was clear. They weren't going to let him walk away quietly. According to D. Barnes, when she later brought N.W.A. onto her Fox TV show Pump It Up to discuss their next moves, the tension was impossible to miss. Nearly every question she asked turned into another jab at Cube. The exchange reportedly became so heated that producers had to cut several moments just to make the episode suitable for broadcast. But that wasn't the end of it. When the episode finally aired, it featured not just the N.W.A. interview, but also a separate clip filmed earlier on the set of Boys and the Hood. That segment included Yo-Yo, a close collaborator and friend of Ice Cube. During that earlier taping, Cube unexpectedly stepped into the interview and took the opportunity to respond to N.W.A. directly. He flipped their own lyrics back at them and escalated the verbal exchange even further. One moment in particular drew criticism. Cube made remarks about the DOC, who had recently suffered a severe car accident that permanently affected his voice.
He talking about this girl that he was in love with. You know, she's supposed to be hip hop, and he's so in love with her. But when she go out here, she get.
Even at the time, D. Barnes later said she didn't believe that segment should air. But as the host, she had no final control over the edit. When the episode was broadcast, the producers chose to place the two clips back to back, N.W.A.'s interview immediately followed by Cube's response. At the very end, D turned to the camera and remarked that she always seemed to be in the middle of controversy. She has since said that comment was a reflexive attempt to move past an awkward moment. But in the final edit, it appeared as if she was inserting herself into the feud, unintentionally amplifying it.
on the West
Yeah,
Coast. And somebody said, yo, Cube dissed you on this song. So we playing the song, and I'm listening. I'm like, damn, this dissing me.
I had a record, man, that was a killer. And then we ended up having this summit with Farrakhan.
Oh.
He helped us squash it. He helped us squash it, so I just never did my record.
You recorded it?
No, I had the lyric.
Time passed, but the fallout didn't disappear. Sometime later, D. Barnes and Dr. Dre crossed paths again at a Def Jam Records party. According to reporting by Alan Light in Rolling Stone, Dre, who was reportedly intoxicated, confronted Barnes over how the Pump It Up episode had been presented. What followed was a physical altercation. Barnes later alleged that Dre attacked her near a stairwell while others were prevented from intervening. She managed to escape and seek safety, but the incident left her shaken and injured. The account sparked widespread backlash and became one of the most controversial moments tied to the N.W.A. breakup. The incident would follow all involved for years, resurfacing repeatedly in conversations about accountability, power, and violence in hip-hop culture. And it marked a point where the Ice Cube versus N.W.A. feud crossed from lyrical warfare into something far darker. The incident involving D. Barnes didn't fade quietly. Members of N.W.A. openly addressed it in later interviews. MC Ren made a statement that shocked many, saying she deserved it. Eazy-E echoed a similar sentiment, dismissing the seriousness of what had happened.
Cube of N.W.A. will be hanging out with him and all his homies at his house.
We'll be back after these commercials or breaks or cuts or whatever.
Whatever. Don't go anywhere.
Dr. Dre himself showed little remorse at the time, publicly framing the situation as retaliation rather than wrongdoing, comments that would later be heavily criticized as attitudes toward accountability in hip-hop evolved. D. Barnes attempted to sue Dre for $22.75 million, but the case was ultimately settled out of court. Even so, the incident became a permanent stain on the legacy of everyone involved, a moment that continued to resurface for decades. But Ice Cube's trail of controversy didn't end there. Soon after, another major feud erupted, this time with Cypress Hill. The tension began around the soundtrack for Friday, which Ice Cube curated. Cypress Hill contributed the track Roll It Up, Light It Up, Smoke It Up, and everything initially seemed smooth. According to Be Real, the real problem started when Cube heard unreleased material from Cypress Hill's upcoming album, Temples of Boom * during studio sessions. One song stood out, Throw Your Set in the Air. Cube reportedly loved it and wanted it for the Friday soundtrack. Cypress Hill declined, explaining that it was the lead single for their own project. Cube pressed, they refused. Not long after, the Friday soundtrack dropped, just ahead of Temples of Boom. Be Real received a call from a friend asking why Cypress Hill had allowed one of their album tracks to appear on the soundtrack. Confused, Be Real listened and immediately noticed something unsettling.
They grabbed me by my hair and started slamming me up against the wall. It's a painful and traumatic experience.
Cube's track didn't use their song directly, but the hook sounded uncomfortably similar, with only slight lyrical changes. To Cypress Hill, it felt less like coincidence and more like imitation. Word got back to Cube through Mac 10, and Cube reached out, calling it a misunderstanding. Tensions cooled, at least on the surface. Later, Cube invited Be Real into the studio to record a guest vocal for Caution. During the session, Be Real heard lyrics that again sounded strikingly close to Temples of Boom material. According to Be Real, Cube seemed to notice his reaction. When Be Real briefly stepped out and returned, those lines were gone. To Cypress Hill, that was confirmation. They believed Cube had crossed the line. Again. This was the tipping point for Cypress Hill. According to Be Real, he went back to his crew, laid everything out, and they agreed it was time to respond. Publicly. Cypress Hill released No Rest for the Wicked, a scathing diss aimed squarely at Ice Cube. What followed was a back-and-forth exchange of diss records that pulled fans and artists into opposing camps. The beef grew deeper. Tensions in the Los Angeles rap scene were already running high, and this rivalry only poured gasoline on the fire. Around that same period, Ice Cube found himself entangled in yet another Los Angeles conflict, this time involving local artists Cam and Solo, stemming from an unresolved business dispute. Things reportedly came to a head at a Los Angeles traffic light, where Cube and Solo crossed paths. According to Solo, the confrontation quickly turned physical. He later claimed he got the better of Cube, and during the scuffle, Cube's chain ended up in Solo's possession. Solo didn't let the moment fade quietly. That same chain was later held up in front of a packed crowd at a Cypress Hill show at the House of Blues. The audience erupted, and a photo of the moment circulated widely, instantly becoming symbolic of how public and disrespectful these feuds had become. Eventually, the tensions cooled. The beefs were officially squashed, bringing an end to one of the most volatile stretches in Ice Cube's career. By the mid-1990s, Ice Cube had clashed with nearly everyone, from N.W.A. to Cypress Hill, to figures connected to Suge Knight. Yet through fists, diss tracks, intimidation, and industry pressure, Cube walked away standing. No prison time, no career collapse. No one ever fully owning him. That's why, in an era ruled by fear, Ice Cube remained one of the few artists who never truly bent to Suge Knight, to rival crews, or to the chaos around him. If you made it this far, drop a comment and tell us what you think. Was Ice Cube standing on principle, or did he cross too many lines? Let us know where you're watching from, and if you want more deep dives into hip-hop's most controversial rivalries, like, subscribe, and share your take below.